A partnership that I got into and invested quite a bit of money into, and that person ended up kind of running away with, 7 figures. So lessons that you've learned, that make you stronger.
Welcome to Think Business with Tyler, sharing our methods and strategies for success. Join in on our conversations with business owners as we highlight their triumphs and detail how they overcame the challenges they faced while continuing to grow and scale their business. It's time to think life, think success, and think business with your host, Tyler Martin.
Hey, welcome back. Today we have another awesome guest. We have Aubrey Amatelli. She is the CEO and founder of PayRio. This is a fintech company that processes payments in the cannabis and alternative medicine space. But this just isn't another business story, and I know you've come to get used to this on Think Business with Tyler. It's a story about resilience. Aubrey spent over a decade at JP Morgan. Then she jumped into a C-suite role at a startup, only to face a toxic culture and leadership that didn't value her. She pushed through it for a year, left on her own terms, and used that experience as fuel to launch her own company. In this episode, we talk about how she bootstrapped her way to profitability, managed a team with near zero turnover, and in today's day and age, near zero turnover is like not even heard of, and navigated major setbacks, including a 7-figure partnership that went south. Aubrey's honest, sharp, and unfiltered about what it takes to build something real, and especially as a single mom leading in a male-dominated space. Let's get into it and chat with Aubrey. Hey, Aubrey, welcome to the Think Business with Tyler podcast show. How you doing today?
Fantastic. Thanks for asking.
Great to have you. I already feel connected to you because we're in the same general area. I never get that.
Yeah, exactly. Born and raised in San Jose. So
that's awesome. Okay. Hey, I want to learn a little bit about you. First, I want to learn, tell us a little bit what you do professionally, just, maybe like 30, 45 seconds in terms of what you do professionally.
Well, right now I'm a CEO and founder of a payment company focused in on cannabis and alternative medicines. So professionally, since 2022, I've been a first-time founder and entrepreneur, and company's been growing rapidly. So it's been taking up a lot of my time, but that's welcome. I love it, but that's what I'm doing today.
That's so awesome. And then how about a fun fact, something personal about you? Maybe ideally, if maybe even people don't know commonly about you.
Well, I was a college athlete. I played soccer in college and I still play today. So I play on a co-ed competitive team every day. And so I'm very active. That soccer is my, my pastime, my happy place. And so even with a busy week of long work days and my kiddos, like that's my church, right? Soccer on Sunday. So that's a fun fact, I would say.
Wow, that's cool. And it's co-ed. Imagine, is there a certain age range in that, or is it just whoever can hang?
It's 25 and older, and I'm way past the 25 mark. So I'm one of the older females on the team, but it keeps me young and active and in shape and happy. Yeah.
Wow, hardcore.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, hey, I want to get into your journey. You have such a cool journey when researching you. I want to start with when you were at JP Morgan. That is obviously an awesome place to work, very well known and a worldwide brand, really. That's a prestigious career. I mean, usually people oftentimes will stay there forever. How did that lead into you potentially like being an entrepreneur? Was this all part of a master plan, or did some things take you down that path?
Great question. It was part of a master plan. So I got to JP Morgan because I was actually working at a very fast growing startup in San Francisco right after I got out. I graduated with my MBA, and being born and raised in Silicon Valley, it just being part of the startup world was always in my blood, I say. And so I got into a really great startup. I was one of the first, 20 employees, and we grew rapidly and got the attention of JP Morgan, and we were acquired. And so my career at JP Morgan and my career in payments wasn't because I went out there and applied to JP Morgan to get the role. JP Morgan took this really great fast growing startup and folded us into the business. And that's where my love of payments began. JP Morgan acquired the startup I was at right when I was having kids. So it was an incredible opportunity for me, a very secure job. Being in the startup world is a little scary when you're starting a family. So being at JP Morgan, I felt secure and safe, and I was there for over a decade. But the startup was always in my blood. It was something that I knew I wanted to get back to. I wanted to be a C-suite. I wanted to be a leader, and I was on that trajectory at JP Morgan. I was leading a large team, but when the opportunity came to go back into the startup world, it was one that I was excited about, and my JP Morgan family kind of, pushed me to do.
Does cash flow have you down? Profit not where you think it should be? Maybe it's the long hours. Let's meet to see if I can help. I bridge driving the financial performance of your business to hit growth and success targets. Book a complimentary meeting at meetforgrowth.com to get started now. Once again, that's meetforgrowth.com. I look forward to talking with you. And thanks for listening to the show.
I was excited about, and my JP Morgan family kind of, pushed me to do.
Right. Yeah, 10 years is quite a lot. It's interesting how you actually, for lack of better words, backed into JP Morgan because of the acquisition, and then right time, right situation in your life. You obviously probably got a lot of killer skills, great skills in the 10 years that you were there. What you said when the opportunity presented itself, what presented itself that caused you to go, let's jump back into startup world?
Yeah, so I was on the payment side of the house at JP Morgan for the majority of my career. And a couple years before I left, Jamie Dimon, Silicon Valley Bank was a huge competitor of ours in the space. And that's when the fintech payment processors came out, like Stripe and Adyen. And so we were, especially being in the heart of the Silicon Valley, Jamie Dimon wanted to go head to head with SVB at the time and say, hey, we want to support fast growing startups just like SVB is, because prior to that, JP Morgan did not support pre-profit companies, right? Startup companies. And so I was tagged to be a commercial banker in this new group that was supporting startups, which is kind of incredible coming from the payment side to be a commercial banker in fintech. And that's really how I got back into the startup world. So when I took that commercial banking role, in the back of my mind, I said, I'm going to get to know all these brand new startups. One day I want to be a CFO or, get into this startup world. I'm ready. And about a year and a half in, I was approached to be the chief revenue officer of a fintech. And I knew from, being a single mom at the time, then that was a really great way for me to just elevate and be in that C-suite role outside of JP Morgan.
So, and of course, share up to the level that you're comfortable. But as I understand it from my research from you, that there was some setback in that. I don't know if it was the relationship or the interaction there. Can you kind of talk about that to the level that you're comfortable?
Yeah, so I was so excited. My dream of being in the C-suite was there, and I left JP Morgan, as I mentioned, with the full encouragement of the company. Like, everyone was so excited for me, and I went over to the startup and just hit the ground running. What I found really early on is I was the only female in the entire C-suite and board, and I was younger by more than a decade. And so it was very hard for me to push forward being the only female. And unfortunately, there were a few of the executives that just didn't have, I found out later, didn't have the best history with working with females in the workplace. And so that was very tough for me because this great opportunity, single mom of three, as you mentioned earlier, my education at JP Morgan, I always say, is like the Harvard of payments.
For sure.
I learned so much there, and I brought that to this new startup, and we were just exceeding our goals on the revenue side, growing rapidly. But I had an internal struggle with dealing with, harassment. essentially. And so
Okay.
that was a really tough learning lesson for me at the time. It was the hardest year of my life, but I'm actually very thankful. It gave me the strength and the courage to leave and start a new company, my own company, where I didn't have to report to
Sure,
anyone
sure.
and I could bring forward that female leadership.
So I want to dig in a little bit here because I think
Yeah.
this is a really important topic, and I don't want to gloss over it too much, but I also want to be really respectful of not getting, crossing any lines. You interviewed with them, obviously, and you probably knew they were predominantly male. Did that not like did in their ages? Didn't that maybe initially there? Did that set off any alarms, or was it after once you actually got hired and then how you were? Because it sounds like you strike me, and I don't know you that well, but it strikes me that a bunch of men aren't going to really necessarily get in your way. It was more of probably how you're being treated and maybe dismissed, and maybe there was even a level of harassment. Can you talk about that? Like, how did that make you feel? And how did you come to that decision where it's like, nah, this ain't going to work. I'm not going to try to make this even work.
Well, yeah. So when I was interviewing, they wanted to get a female or have a female
Sure.
come into that role, and so it was recruited specifically for a female that fit the role. I went through a dozen interviews along with many others candidates, and unanimously I was chosen to go to be the chief revenue officer, which is a wonderful feeling. I'm used to working in a male dominated environment. Even at JP Morgan, I would be in a room with a brand new startup and I would be the only female out of 20 people pitching payments, right? So I'm used to that. I didn't, and JP Morgan is just such an upstanding company. Jamie Dimon is a hero. He's an amazing leader. So I didn't even think that that's a possibility.
Yeah.
What I learned is when you get into a world outside of JP Morgan, the human resource department is much smaller. Certain things go that don't go on that side. And that was a big learning for me. It's not everything is like JP Morgan, just like being a California girl going to the school on the East Coast. I was in my California bubble and my eyes were open. I feel like I was kind of in my JP Morgan bubble and my eyes were open. Not every startup operates that way, obviously, but I happen to find myself in one that did.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is kind of mind boggling a little bit. Like you think in our day and age, the experience you had probably was like 50x like 10 years ago or 15 years ago. So I think we've progressed a lot, but it is these pockets of behavior still are pretty norm. I mean, I've even seen it in my circles, which like, especially earlier in my career, which like blows my mind. How did that make you feel like as you were going through that? Because let's just back up, like very successful. You've been at a top-notch organization, excelled at a high level, went to a really good school. I mean, you've had nothing but success pretty much in your career, at least as I'm kind of reading it from the outside. And then all of a sudden you take this job and you're dealing with something for the first time that you probably never dealt with before. Like, well, how's that making you feel? And what was that decision like? Like, was that an instant decision or was it like, I'm going to try to make it work for a while?
It wasn't instant. And how it made me feel was it was the first time I really was facing adversity. You're right. I was a very high achiever. I got a full ride scholarship to play soccer. On the sales side, I was always president's club. I was the youngest executive director in our group at JP Morgan. So I was used to my hard work paying off, right? And that mentality of success. And in the startup world, my hard work was paying off. My team was growing, but it was the first time I really had to face like that adversity of poor treatment with kind of nowhere to go. I'm a single mother, a sole breadwinner, provider for my kids, and I'm just left an incredible career at JP Morgan. I can't just quit and leave right away because then it's going to look like I didn't succeed as a C-suite. And what's that next interview going to look like? Why didn't you stay? And so I, in the back of my head, said, I'm going to make it a year. I'm going to be here for a year, think about what I want to do next. But that was why I said it was the hardest year, because I had to face that adversity the whole year and figure out how to lead through that, which ultimately, looking back, I'm so grateful for that year. It really was a turning point in my career and me as an executive, because I didn't have to lead through adversity at JP Morgan. and I learned to do that. And so now I had that skill to, start my own company. And without that experience, I don't know if I ever would have started PayRio. I started PayRio because I, was not ready yet to work for someone else after the experience. So I thought, I guess I'll just work for myself and be the change.
Wow. Do you have any words of wisdom in terms of folks when they get into a situation like that, when you reflect back on it, that you either would have done differently, or just anything you've learned from that experience that some other people might be able to leverage off of?
I would say, at the time, it was one of the hardest things in my career I went through.
Yeah.
Looking back, I'm so grateful for it. So everything happens for a reason. We have to face adversity. We have to face hard times to grow. I wouldn't be the leader I am today, and PayRio wouldn't even be here today if I didn't face that. So I would say, just follow your gut, follow your heart, and don't be afraid at the end, to speak up, which is what I ultimately did.
Was that at the end where you really kind of said,
Yeah.
hey,
Once I spoke up, that's kind of when the parting happened. So
yeah.
that's probably as far as I can go on that part.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
Yeah.
But good instincts on your part, because to your point, I mean, 3 kids, single mom, main breadwinner. Gosh, if you would have done that, sadly, I mean, you wish you could have, but if you would have done that earlier in that journey, you would have found yourself unemployed and probably not positioned. One of the things I learned early in my career is pick the moments of your battles. Like, one time I'll never forget, I was in the middle of a close and I kind of called someone out on my staff, and the CFO took me into the office at the time and he said, dude, everything you're saying is right, but you totally picked the wrong time. And I kind of think it's like here is like, you got to pick, as much as it sucks, totally different topic, of course, but you had to pick your moment. So
one last thing, if you keep, I kept my head down. I led with, integrity. I grew my team. We hit our numbers. So for me, the focus was, what are my goals? Let's achieve. How can I treat my organization with respect? And really kind of was narrowly focused on growing my team. And that kept the noise out as much as it possibly could. So I loved my job. I loved my team. I loved what I did, and I knew I'd be successful. So I just focused on hitting the numbers and getting to my ultimate, exit plan.
that's good stuff. Okay. And then where does PayRio come into this? Is it like the last 3 months you're like getting this idea, or is this something that's kind of in the back of your mind, even back in the JP Morgan days? Like and then what triggers you to go, today's the day?
Yeah, so I had the skill, and now getting into the startup world and seeing payments in a different light. I had an employee who worked with me who encouraged me to do this. I had friends who said, you can do it, right? And so ultimately, we parted ways, and I used the funds that we agreed upon, and use those to start my company. I had the confidence in myself. I wasn't prepared to go work for another company. So it was almost like this, do or die moment. You have to succeed. Like, I would have hooked onto my train, because there's no way a single mama bear is going to, let herself fail if she's taking care of these kiddos. So it was a grind, a hustle. Anyone who started a company knows it's long 20-hour days, but I was ready, and I felt at the time it was my only choice. And I'm glad I had that narrow-minded view, because I'm so proud of where we've, come today.
Yeah. It's interesting because you're so skilled and you look at so many people where they do have separations, or for whatever reason, maybe even get laid off. You definitely had you would have had a lot of opportunities, but I could see how, probably in your mind going through what you went, it was kind of like, man, I don't want to have to go through 100 interviews where I'm explaining, why things separated. And so that's probably part of your reasoning, I would think, too.
Well, I also didn't want to jump into another company where where I didn't know how the leadership would treat me. And I was very shocked at the way things turned out previously. And so in my mind, you never know,
Yeah.
but the safest place for me to be is a leader myself, because I know that my staff of 20 plus employees now, like, are all treated fairly, with respect, and we're a family. And that's how I think every business should be, obviously. So if I there's always an unknown when you jump into a new job. So I created my unknown.
So before I get into that, because I definitely want to talk about the family comment a little bit more and just the culture that you've built. Let's talk a little bit more about PayRio and payments, what they do. I mean, I know just part to help the audience, but I think part also just to understand your business model. I know you're mostly, if not all, focused in the cannabis space. Is that correct?
So we started focus 100% in the cannabis space, and since 2022, we've grown to support all alternative medicines, psilocybin, peptides, CBD, alternative cannabinoids. So it was kind of like we started with cannabis, but our customers had needs for other types of businesses or other pieces of their business. And so we grew our company to support their needs. And by doing that, we're now expanding the type of customer that we can bring on board. So we work with dispensaries using, physical terminals at dispensary, like you check out. But a large piece of our business now, almost half, is working with e-commerce companies. So we can help support payments online, which is really great.
And you're basically, is it safe to say the intermediary? Is that how you would use is that the right terminology?
Yeah, so every company needs a payment processor in order to accept payments. We are that millisecond in between the time you tap your card, insert your card, or enter your card online. We're that millisecond, but we specialize in high risk alternative medicine industries. So you can't go to Square to do what we do. Cannabis is still federally illegal. A lot of the products we work with are federally illegal. So we have to process payments in a way that aren't breaking the rules from the federal government and or Visa and MasterCard. So it's a very unique, nuanced payment flow. But we're the experts at it. And so a lot of times customers are Googling and apply to Square and apply to all these other companies that they find online and get turned down. If they come to us, we're kind of that one-stop shop and can find the perfect solution for their business.
And what do you like in order to, because this is, you mentioned being high risk, it's usually a very hard area for companies that are doing cannabis or whatever they're doing that's in an area that may not be completely legal. Did you leverage off your relationships? Is that how you were able to, like, did you just go over to Jamie Dimon and just say, hey, dude, this is a lucrative opportunity. Let me be the intermediary and we'll send you the business. I mean, how did you get into this niche basically?
Yeah, so no, I mean, JP Diamond and JP Morgan, they do support cannabis in Canada because it is federally legal in Canada. But, the big banks are going to follow legalization as they should. So what I leveraged was my deep experience in payments. What is compliant? Different technologies that I knew were going to keep my customers safe because the industry is federally legal, but it's legal on a state by state basis. You have a lot of players who are coming in, payment players that are coming in and kind of bending the rules, breaking the law, disguising their solution as a florist shop or a farmer's market. That you want to stay away with. With us, I'm always making sure that the processor we're working with is in the up and up and really diving deep into their funds flow and their technology before we bring it to market. So not leveraging the relationships I have because they don't, support payments in cannabis yet, and that's to come, but leveraging the education that I received from JP Morgan to keep our customers safe.
If you're a business owner feeling stuck in your business, overwhelmed, responsible for everything that happens, and working long hours, Tyler helps his clients develop processes, hire high-performing team members, and better understand their financial metrics and numbers to allow for a more predictable, less hands-on business. To schedule a free, no-pressure consultation, head to thinktyler.com and click the meeting button. Tyler would love to see if he can help you work on your business, not in your business. Schedule a consultation today at thinktyler.com. Think life, think success, think business.
Education that I received from JP Morgan to keep our customers safe.
Okay. And is part of the workaround here, am I understanding this correctly? Like, let's say it's legal in California. do you just basically need a processor that's physically doing the processing in California to make that? Is that the loophole to make it legal?
No, it's actually it's not. We just run through, the ATM rails that aren't tied to Visa, Mastercard, or we use wallet technology,
Got it.
very similar to Venmo. So there's ways around it, but we only can support businesses like in the cannabis world, for example, who are in a legal state, right? We're not supporting any businesses, dispensaries that are in a state where it's not legal. But yeah, it's a very nuanced payment structure. It's funny because I'm in love with payments. I've loved payments for my entire career since JP Morgan acquired us, but it was the reason I love payments is because you learn something new every single day. It keeps you on your toes. And so jumping into this company, I'm still learning every single day, which is wild in in the payment world where there's nuances on a day-to-day basis that I get to continue to learn.
Yeah. Okay, and then you're bootstrapped. So you said you use some of the funds from your previous opportunity, and you became profitable, I believe, in the first year.
Mm.
Was that part of you, like your modeling? Did you look at that and go, okay, I'll be profitable in a year, or does that just kind of things play out in your favor?
Yeah, it was part of my modeling. I had a set amount of funds that I was going to dedicate to the company, and I knew and I needed to be profitable before those funds ran out. I started the company with 1099 sales only employees. That helped me because I didn't have a cost for the employees that came on board. They essentially were working for free with a very, very high commission structure as in partnership with me to grow the company. And I used the funds that went to the company to continue to grow. So I was recycling the revenue into the company for growth, living off of, the funds that I had. And so I wasn't even paying myself. So when it comes to like profitability, we were, with all of our expenses, we were bringing in more funds than our, spending at the time. And 1099 sales is the key was my key to success to start. Now we've grown. We have salary employees, hourly employees, even salary salespeople. So we've come a long way, but that was the way I was able to start and become profitable because everyone who was working and putting time into the company was bringing in revenue. They all had ROI.
What did you when you say 1099 sales? It
Mhm.
sounded like it was commission only, and they got a very high percentage. Were you
Yeah.
just basically just hiring as many people that would accept that deal, and then they would have to go out and find where they, whatever they need to do, they'd go out and do it? Or were you kind of giving them a list and saying, hey, these are good prospects? Like, what did that look like to get them to actually be productive? Because a lot of times when it's commission only, a lot of people are just they say they'll do it, and then they don't do anything.
Yeah. I was treating them like salary employees because that's all I knew as a leader.
Yeah.
So paying for all expenses, covering it like they were salary, they just weren't getting a salary. So I think a lot of 1099 positions just say, here's the opportunity, go and find it. If you get a deal, come let me know. I was treating them, they were part of the company. They were invested in the growth of the company and they were earning a lot of money doing it, helping the company grow. So yeah, I would say they were all invested because they saw the opportunity and were making good money to pay for their efforts.
Yeah, if they're sales driven folks and they're making good commission, they'll
Yeah.
they'll they'll figure it out. I got it.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to go over to the topic of culture. So you mentioned, and I know that you have predominantly a female staff. I know you have very low turnover. My latest research had probably even zero potentially. So that means people are really sticking around with you. And you use that word family. It's interesting, that word family. Sometimes you go on the internet and people all have their opinions, and you have one person saying, business isn't family, it's business. And then you'll have other people where, it is very much of a family feeling and they have a different perspective on it. How are you doing that? Like, what do you think you're doing as a leader, that you're hiring the right people, they fit in, they stick around? Like, can you give us kind of some words of wisdom and what you think you're doing effectively in that area?
Yes. So PayRio's my baby. It's my fourth child. And when you're self-funded and you have a lot of on the line, hiring for me was so important that the individuals coming to the company and working for the company were within my network, right? So they referred to me. I have my two best friends from high school working at PayRio right now. I have my best friend from college is the VP of sales now at PayRio. My second employee was my neighbor growing up that I used to babysit. So I know the family, I know him really well. I could trust these people. I could trust that these individuals were going to come in and, work hard and not take advantage, right? And that was, for me, I felt safe with my hires because I knew that we were all there together, and we were already kind of family in a way before. We were connected in a way before. We've since expanded. We've had a few hires that didn't work out because they, came from the ether, and it was exciting and they were great, but I would say I took it slow. The hiring at PayRio, even to this day, is organic. It's the individuals are coming to us. They're invested in us. They've heard of us or been referred. And that's really kept the culture close. We actually just won. Cannabis Business Times announced that we received the award of Best Company to Work For in 2025, which was a huge accomplishment. I almost fell off my seat. The most proud accomplishment to date as a company, because that's an anonymous survey to all of our employees. It goes through our benefits and how we pay and treat our employees. And, there's hundreds of companies around the country who apply for this, award, and we received it. So it's a testament to the culture that we've had. And I just treat everyone the way I wish I was treated at that job after JP Morgan.
Yeah. So in the case of those three, which is a very small percentage, you're always going to have some people that don't always work out. How have you chosen to deal with that? Like, do you know right away, like when someone's not a fit and you deal with it right away? Do you give them a lot of opportunity, or how have you read that when someone hasn't been a fit, and how do you deal with it?
I give them all an opportunity and an extended opportunity. Performance improvement plans were a big part of JP Morgan. And although they're 1099 employees, for example, I give a very extended performance improvement plan because I want them to say, I'm invested. I never pulled the rug out under anyone. It's a mutual kind of decision at the end, whether they stay or go. So a lot of outsiders look and say, you're giving them such a long, leeway or a long runway. But for me, that's a fair way to do it. You don't ever want to surprise anyone. They're supporting their family. So how can we partner together to make you successful? And after this performance plan, if it just doesn't work out, then they kind of see it too. And so that's the way I work through that.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest wins if you want to call it a win in terms of terminating someone, is when you tell them and they say, oh yeah, I was expecting it, or, oh yeah, I get it. That's when you kind of know you've at least communicated well that things weren't working out and you've gotten to that point.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Okay. Cannabis is generally when I'm thinking cannabis, I'm thinking, and I know you're a little bit more out in the fringe, but I think this still holds true, pretty much a male dominated industry. Had there been any challenges in terms of maybe not being taken seriously, especially in your business initially? Have you had to navigate any challenges because it kind of leans a little bit more onto the male side?
Yes, it's all I have, especially starting, right? When I was starting the company, I had two 1099 salespeople and myself, and we all would do like we'd meet in the morning. I get on the phones, make 100 calls a day. We'd meet in the afternoon together and talk about, how it went. I very early on, before PayRio was kind of known and a name brand, obviously your first couple customers, they're just taking a chance on you. As you grow, you can get the referrals, etc. But were times where I hopped on a Zoom and talking through payments, and I think the initial assumption was I had no clue what I was talking about. But then, when I leaned into my background and where I came from, the people would sit up and listen to me and respect what I had to say. But I do think a lot of times coming into an industry that is male dominated, or just in general being new, there is a skepticism of, does she know what she's talking about? Can we trust this company? But I turned that around very quickly. I operate PayRio like a mini JP Morgan. All of our customers have met with me at a Zoom to go through a presentation, to pitch. So they very quickly know we know what we're talking about. But it's just, I think it's in any industry. It's especially harder being a new company and a female founder, though, I would say.
Yeah, that makes sense. Motherhood and entrepreneurship. I want to talk about that a little bit. So you have 3 kids. You said you're a single mother,
Yeah.
and everybody's kind of relying on you to bring the food home.
Yeah.
How do you do that? Because you even mentioned 20-hour day, 20-hour days. I don't know if you're doing that 7 days a week, but even 5 days a week is incredible. How are you handling this startup? And maybe it's tapered off a little bit, but how did you handle it in the middle and the early on?
Yeah, great question. My community is so important. I have an au pair that has lived with me for over 4 years. She's from Colombia. She's part of the family. And so she helps take care of the children when I'm working. My mother comes and she helps. I really have to lean on a lot of help out to assist me in getting tasks done. So I'm not, I can be the founder that I need to be in order for success. And it was a very hard grind, the first couple years, and a lot of tough conversations with my kiddos about how I have to work long hours or do a lot of traveling. But I had the support to complete the family and keep the kids happy. The kids are happy and loved and cared for when I couldn't be there. I'm fortunate enough to be able to build a team to allow me more time, with the kiddos. But it wasn't easy. It's the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life. But it is my dream job, and I'm, and it's all paid off, luckily.
Have you ever had a moment where you're sitting at your desk or you're at work and your kids obviously they're being very well taken care of, it sounds like, but you can't be with your kids. Is that a conflict? And emotionally, does that kind of sometimes just kind of grind, probably more in the beginning, but kind of grind you down where you've been like, man, is this all worth it? Or has it always been like, no, my why is my kids and I'm going to bust through this? Like, where does that fit in? Have there been some low moments?
Definitely low moments, but I love how you put that. My why is my kids. I learned why a lot of companies don't make it past the first year because it's so hard. I went to see Mark Zuckerberg speak at a live podcast. I'm totally blanking on the name. I have the poster in the other room at the office, but I went to see him speak about a year ago, and him and the founder of NVIDIA and Spotify were all there live on stage. And the question was asked, if you knew what you had gone through as a founder at Meta or all these incredible companies, would you have started the company in the beginning and the answer unanimously was no. It
Wow.
was no, which is crazy to think, right? It's crazy to think that Mark Zuckerberg wouldn't have started Facebook or Meta had he known what he would go through. But as a founder, once you're in it and you're passionate, you have that drive to succeed no matter what. And that's the mama bear that comes into play there. You just work through it and don't give up. But it is tough. It made me feel like seen and heard. And for the first time, I could take a deep breath, like, okay, all this hard, it's normal to be a founder and to be scared and have the feelings of maybe potentially, wanting to give up, but knowing that's not an option. But it made me feel seen. So that was great.
Do you have like one, just to kind of dig one layer deeper here? Do you have
Yeah.
like one moment here where you're sitting at your desk late at night or whatever time it was, and it was kind of a like, is this worth it? Like, what was it that kind of hit you? Was it losing a client or maybe not a client signing on with you? Does something come to mind that was that kind of one triggering point?
Yes, there's two big points in the company's history that gave me a lot of pause. One of them was our primary, technology partner, Visa and MasterCard, freezing that solution, which caused all of our customers to not have payments. And it caused a loss of some customers. We were able to take the majority and help them, switch them to another solution of ours. But seeing your revenue just pause and
Wow.
seeing the customer base that you've worked so hard, deplete in a way, not fully, but, and they all with love, decide to be cash only for a while. So, we have a great relationship with all of our customers. It's our extended family. So that was one. And another one was a partnership that I got into and invested quite a bit of money into, and that person ended up kind of running away with, 7 figures. So, lessons that you've learned, that make you stronger, that'll come back. But those are two where it's like you're so passionate, you kind of see a pause or a loss, and you can make it up, but you're kind of working all the way here and you're just on this trajectory, and then it stops and you have to start to claw your way back up. That is the moment where I think a lot of entrepreneurs might say, you know what? Let me just go back to JP Morgan, or let me just go back here and not have to worry about that stress of
For sure.
way back up.
Yeah, for sure. That 7-figure deal, was that a partnership that was related to your business? It was going to somehow feel.
It was a product we brought to market, and we're still, it's still working through it. It's part of the business. Cannabis payments are volatile, but it was just one of those situations that kind of blindsided me, and it's a learning lesson. Again, it's a complete learning lesson. I saw the ability my team had to launch and grow a product, from the ground up. So that was a really cool thing to see my team work on and come together, and so all of it's a learning lesson. It's just you have to pick yourself back up on the floor from the, dust yourself off and keep going. And that is something I'm proud of, that we keep going, and the team wants to keep going as well.
I so appreciate your transparency, though, because when you talk about resiliency and just kind of fighting through it, I mean, your whole model is probably the stability of providing payment processing. And, Visa suddenly pulls the plug, or MasterCard. I mean, like anyone else's business, you're literally shutting off everything the value you're kind of providing, or the trust you're providing. So I could imagine, I mean, that could cause some sleepless nights. I mean, thank God you were able to, divert some of it, or at least hopefully most of it. Good stuff. Okay. Where do you see, so PayRio, is this like a boutique type? Like, if we're looking 5 years out, is this a boutique type company, maybe $10 or $20 million company? Nothing wrong with that, by the way, but that's probably its niche. It's got a certain level of growth. Or is there something here that has a lot more growth and potentially acquisition? I mean, because it is kind of a niche that has risk to it, is this an acquirable type company potentially? And I'm not asking you if that's even one of your goals, but I'm just curious, where's the upside here, and what's your thoughts in terms of, just options? And I'm not saying anything you're even considering.
I've always considered an acquisition. I've been on my own financially since I was 16. I've always been the breadwinner. And so I'm tired. I'm tired. I love my job and I love what we're doing and what we're building. But when cannabis becomes federally legal, a big portion of our business is going to kind of fade away, because there's point of sale providers, right, that have all the inventory. And then there's payments, which is us. When cannabis is federally legal, those are going to be able to be integrated, and you need the point of sale to run your business. So integrated payments means we're going to fall off on the payment side, which I know it's a matter of time. So we have diversified. We have a lot of e-commerce. We have a sub business now that does low risk. We're looking at potentially partnering or acquiring a point of sale so we can keep that part of our business going. But ultimately, I see us as boutique. We grow rapidly at an organic pace. So it's something I'm proud of. But acquisition is there. And then also, when cannabis is federally legal, the goal over the next couple of years, before I think that's going to happen, is to build up the other book of business outside of dispensaries, so that we can keep going and sailing off into the sunset. So it's definitely something I've actually been thinking about a lot over the last couple of months, and just preparation for the future, and what do I want the future to be. And I think the organic growth and boutique feels the safest for me after a couple of instances I've been through since launching the company.
Does cash flow have you down? Profit not where you think it should be? Maybe it's the long hours. Let's meet to see if I can help. I bridge driving the financial performance of your business to hit growth and success targets. Book a complimentary meeting at meetforgrowth.com to get started now. Once again, that's meetforgrowth.com. I look forward to talking with you. And thanks for listening to the show.
I think the organic growth and boutique feel feels the safest for me after a couple of instances I've been through since launching the company.
And there's a lot of great, a lot of great businesses that are boutique. I mean, the staffing firm that I sold got to $25 million. It was very highly profitable. It fit the niche that another big company wanted to fill. And so it was perfect. So those are great businesses. Who would be potentially in your mind, like who would want this kind of like augmented into their business? Or is it someone else doing this and maybe would just want a larger footprint?
I think that's what it is. It's the current cannabis point of sales potentially acquiring our cannabis business, or point of sales outside of cannabis. Let's just give Square as an example. When cannabis is federally legal, Square is a huge point of sale provider for small to medium businesses. They might say, we want to get into cannabis. We could set our sales team out and sell against the big point of sales that have been in cannabis since the beginning, or we can acquire a boutique firm, acquire, hundreds of customers by that time, maybe even thousands. And then all of a sudden we're in cannabis and we're competing with the others. So I would say point of sale provider wanting to expand their footprint, or someone wanting to come into the industry and with a great, customer base to start.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Okay. I know we're coming right up on time. What I'd like to just finish up, one last question.
Yeah.
Any words of wisdom as we part here? There's entrepreneurs out in the audience. I'd love to know if there's something in your journey so far that you've learned. It could be a tip. It could be anything. It could even be something we've already talked about, but just that you could kind of give us to have us walk away with something that maybe we could apply to our business.
That's a good one. I say a lot that I manifested my dream job. I love payments, and I actually was or have been in the cannabis industry in California since 2010. Ancillary. My partner and kiddo's father was a grower in Santa Cruz County, and kind of unexpected when I met him, but I got to see the cannabis industry from, when it was flourishing with small boutique growers to how it got taken over by large growers. And so I took my two passions and married them together. And you have to love what you do. If you're going to start a company, it needs to be in an industry or what you love. And I would say stay true to yourself and your mission. There's a lot of, very great opportunities that are dangled in front of you. But if it doesn't feel right and your intuition and gut says there's something off, but you see dollar signs, I've run through that a couple times and it hasn't worked out. So I would say stay true to your mission and don't sway off of that. And if you keep your core values intact, you'll have success.
Good stuff. That's powerful. Your website, payrio.co. So that's PAYRIO.co. That's where your main company site is. Payrio.hq is your Instagram handle for the business.
_PayRio_HQ.
Okay, I thought I said, sorry if I missed that out. And then, of course, if people want to reach out to you, I would imagine Instagram is also a good, I'll put that in the show notes, but that could also, is that the best place if people want to reach out to you?
Well, actually, our website .co and we actually have the .com, so they both go the same spot. You can book a meeting directly if you go to meet the team. It has myself and our entire team listed, and you could book a meeting right on my calendar. So that's always awesome to have meetings pop up and be able to talk to the community. So that would probably be the best way to get a hold of me immediately.
Awesome. Well, hey, I wish you the best of luck as a fellow Californian, especially. And I appreciate you being on the show and wish you just a ton of luck and success going forward.
Thank you, Tyler. It was wonderful. You're a great host, so I appreciate the time.
Thanks. I appreciate that, Aubrey. You're awesome.
All right. Take care.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. What strikes me about Aubrey's story isn't just that she built a profitable company in 1 year, or that she's dominating in a male-dominated industry, or even that she's doing it all as a single mom of 3 kids. It's that she turned her worst professional experience into her greatest strength. That harassment and toxicity that she faced after leaving JP Morgan, it didn't break her. It taught her exactly what kind of leader she never wanted to be. And now she's built a company that just won Best Place to Work because she treats her team like a family. Aubrey said something that really stuck with me. She manifested her dream job by combining her 2 passions, payments and cannabis. But here's what I really think happened. She took her pain and turned it into purpose. She took her expertise and combined it with her values. And she refused to let anyone else's limitations define what was possible for her. Now, whether you're facing workplace challenges, thinking about starting something new, or just trying to figure out how to scale and grow your company, Aubrey's story proves that sometimes the worst things that happen to you can become the best thing that ever happened to your career. That's the power of staying true to your mission, even when, especially when, everyone else doubts you can pull it off. Stay real. See you next week.
Electricast.